Reading through the Bible in 1 year, September 4th, 1 Samuel 28, 1 Corinthians chapter 9, Ezekiel 7, and Psalm 45. Now it came about in those days that the Philistines gathered their camps, or their armed camps for war, to fight against Israel. And Achish, the king of Gath, said to David, "Know assuredly that you will go out with me in the camp, you and your men." And David said to Achish, "Very well, you shall know what your servant can do." So Achish said to David, "Very well, I will make you my bodyguard for life." Now Samuel was dead. We know, because we already talked about that. And all Israel had lamented him and buried him in Ramah, his own city. And Saul had removed from the land those who were mediums and spiritists, because God said not to have them. So the Philistines gathered together and came and camped in Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel together, and they camped in Gilboa. When Saul saw the camp of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart trembled greatly. When Saul inquired of the Lord did not answer him, because he had gone out from him just as he had said, either by dreams or by Urim or by prophets. Then Saul said to his servants, "Seek for me a woman who is a medium, that I may go to her and inquire of her." And his servant said to him, "Behold, there is a woman who is a medium at Endor." Then Saul disguised himself by putting on other clothes, and went, he and his 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by night. And he said, "Conjure up for me, please, and bring up for me whom I shall name to you." But the woman said to him, "Behold, you know what Saul has done, how he cut off those who are mediums and spiritists from the land." Cut off again meaning killed. So he either drove them out or killed the ones that were there. "Why are you then laying a snare for my life to bring about my death?" And Saul vowed to her by the Lord, saying, "As the Lord lives, no punishment shall come upon you for this thing." Then the woman said, "Whom shall I bring up for you?" And he said, "Bring up Samuel for me." Then the woman saw Samuel, and she cried out with a loud voice. And the woman spoke to Saul, saying, "Why have you deceived me? For you are Saul." And the king said to her, "Do not be afraid. But what do you see?" And the woman said to Saul, "I see a divine being coming up out of the earth." And he said to her, What is his form?" She said, "An old man is coming up. He is wrapped in a robe." And Saul knew that it was Samuel. And he bowed his face to the ground and did homage. Then Samuel said to Saul, "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?" Saul answered, "I am greatly distressed, for the Philistines are waging war against me, and God has departed from me, and no longer answers me, either through prophets or by dreams. Therefore I have called you, that you may make known to me what I should do." And Samuel said, "Well, why then do you ask me, since the Lord has departed from you and become your adversary? The Lord has done accordingly as he spoke through me, for the Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hand and given it to your neighbor David. As you did not obey the Lord and did not execute his fierce wrath on Amalek, so the Lord has done this thing to you this day. Moreover, the Lord will also give over Israel along with you into the hand of the Philistines. Therefore tomorrow you and your sons will be with me," meaning in the grave, in death. "Indeed, the Lord will give over the army of Israel into the hands of the Philistines." Then Saul immediately fell full length upon the ground. It was very afraid because of the words of Samuel. Also, there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no food all day and all night. He was fasting, hoping God would appear to him. The woman came to Saul and saw that he was terrified and said to him, "Behold, your maidservant has obeyed you, and I have taken my life in my hand and have listened to your words which you spoke to me. So now also, please, listen to the voice of your maidservant, and let me set a piece of bread before you, that you may eat and have strength when you go on your way." But he refused and said, No, I will not eat." However, his servants, together with the woman, urged him, and he listened to them. So he arose from the ground and sat on the bed. The woman had a fattened calf in the house, and she quickly slaughtered it. I got to bring up the rest of the notes here because I didn't really have all of them. Give me a moment to pull them up. There we go. All right. So the woman had a fattened calf in the house, and she quickly slaughtered it, and she took flour, kneaded it, and baked unleavened bread from it. She brought it before Saul and his servants, and they ate. Then they arose and went away that night. And we will go more into that tomorrow. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Paul continues. Am I not free? Am I not an apostle? Have I not seen Jesus our Lord? Are you not my work in the Lord? I'm going to read the notes on this because this is a little confusing for people. So Paul's willingness to forego some of his rights is an illustration of the principle he states in 8 verse 9. The questions in verse 1 may indicate that some in Corinth were questioning Paul's authority and criticizing his behavior, which we also see in verse 3. Or they simply highlight the non-controversial evidence of his apostolic authority, as verse 2 affirms, to show that he has demonstrated the mindset that he is requiring of the Corinthians, the readiness to forfeit personal rights for others' well-being. That's been his theme for the last chapter, and then also 2 chapters ago. If to others I am not an apostle, at least I am to you. For you are the seal of my apostleship in the Lord. My defense to those who examine me is this. Do we not have a right to eat and drink? Do we not have the right to take along a believing wife, as even the rest of the apostles and the brothers of the Lord and Cephas? Or do not only Barnabas and I have the right to refrain from working? Who at any time serves as a soldier at his own expense, who plants a vineyard and does not eat the fruit of it, or who tends a flock and does not use the milk of the flock. I am not speaking these things according to human judgment, am I? Or does the law not also say these same things? For indeed it is written in the law of Moses, you shall not muzzle the ox while he is threshing. God is not concerned about oxen, is he? Or is he speaking altogether for our sake? Yes, for our sake it was written, because the plowman ought to plow in hope, and the thresher to thresh in hope of sharing the crops. If we sowed spiritual things in you, is it too much if we reap material things from you? If others share the right over you, do not we more? Nevertheless, we did not use this right, but we endure all things so that we will cause no hindrance to the gospel of Christ. Do you not know that those who perform sacred services eat the food of the temple, and those who attend regularly to the altar have their share from the altar? So also the Lord directed those who proclaim the gospel to get their living from the gospel. He's showing that itinerant preachers and even local pastors should be paid for their work. And he, as their father in the Lord who planted this church, he's like, look, is it that big of a deal if I ever have asked you for anything? But I never did. Saying I had the authority to do it. See, there were these other guys kicking around at the time who were basically these, the term used is Judaizers, and they refer to themselves as kind of super apostles, right? We'll get to them later in more detail. But just know that these super apostles are just regular guys who had, what's a good way to put this? They're people like T.D. Jakes, right? Or other people like him who are very good with their words, who can really kind of spin a tale for you and explain things in such a way that you just kind of swoon over what they've said. These are those super apostles. So when they were showing up, they were criticizing Paul and the others because they didn't have this excellent speech like they did. Nope. They didn't have all of the extra abilities that these guys have, right? So are they really all that good to begin with, right? Paul didn't have book deals, even though he wrote basically half of the New Testament. Um, he didn't have a book deal, but these guys do. He wasn't on TV, but these guys are. So we should listen to the guys who have the book deals and who are on TV. That's what they're kind of like. That's what they were saying. That also, because of their local fame, they should be the ones who are given extra money. You should pay extra just for them to come to your church. Who's the pastor in Texas from Lakewood Church? He winks a lot. Anyway, or blinks a lot. I saw that he was giving a benefit or something. Not even a benefit. He was just doing like a tour. And you could have him come and preach at your church for $25,000 a head. Why? What is he going to tell you that someone else won't? What is he going to tell you that your current pastor won't? Or is this the new thing? Now, for you to hear your pastor preach the gospel to you every single week, do you have to start paying him $1,000 a week? $10,000, $100,000 a week to get that best sermon he can possibly muster? It's ridiculous. And this is the kind of thing that he's talking about, because those same people were demanding money from them to preach. Not like your normal pastor who's not really demanding, but, he needs to be able to feed his family. We need to keep the lights on. Someone's got to repair the AC at church during the summer, that kind of thing, right? Someone's got to pay for that. So that's where the money that you typically give to your church goes to. It's to taking care of those needs. But to pay a super apostle well beyond your means for him just to show up, it's not worth it at all. Now, I will say this. Sometimes when you have a pastor come and visit your church, right? Let's say that your pastor's out of town. Typically, the church will provide what's called an honorarium, which is just a small amount of money as a thank you for coming. And because they acknowledge from this same text that the work you're putting into this as a pastor or as a teacher, it takes 40, 60, 100 hours to produce a good sermon. It's not I'm going to sit down and burn this out over the next, between flights as I go from one location to another. Though C.H. Spurgeon did have a way of just standing up and preaching from whatever text was in front of him, but I'm not Spurgeon, and I'm 100% positive your pastor isn't either. He might be great, probably no Spurgeon, just saying. He was, of course, the prince of preachers. Anyway, so back to the point here. So this is what was happening, right? So this is the kind of thing he's combating against. We'll get through more of this into Galatians and also into 2 Corinthians when we go into the same type of thing and how it's and how he explains how to deal with that. We're going to pick back up in verse 14. So also the Lord directed those to proclaim the gospel to get their living from the gospel. That was the point he was making. But I have used none of these things, and I am not writing these things so that it will be done so that it will be done so in my case. It's like, look, I'm not asking for your money. For it would be better for me to die than for any man to make his boast an empty one. Again, his boast is in the fact that there's a good church there, and he was the apostle sent from Jesus who planted that church. And he's like, look, if you can say that the only reason I did it was for money, no, absolutely not. I'm not going to do that. So that's what he's saying. For if I preach the gospel, I have nothing to boast of. It's the gospel. It's God's good news. He's just telling you. For I am under compulsion. For woe is me if I do not preach the gospel. This is the same thing we saw in the prophets, where they would eat these scrolls that were given to them from God, right? And then it would become that fire in their belly, and they would have to get it out. They can't not tell people these things. For if I do this voluntarily, well, I have a reward, right? If I choose to do it just for giggles, right? If I just do it on my own, well then yeah, absolutely, I should be paid for my work. But if it's against my will, I have a stewardship entrusted to me. God put the words into him. He had to get those out and tell the people. He couldn't keep from doing this. That's the point being made. So what then is his reward? That when I preach the gospel, I may offer the gospel without charge, so as not to make full use of my right in the gospel. For though I am free from all men, I have made myself a slave to all, so that I may win more. To the Jews I became as a Jew, so that I might win Jews. To those who are under the law, as under the law, though not myself being under the law, which we read about in Romans, right? We're no longer under the law or under its compulsions or issues. But we are free in that regard because Jesus was our sacrifice in our place on our behalf so that we are no longer under that law, right? Though not being without the law of God, but under the law of Christ, so that I might win those who are without the law. To the weak, I became weak, that I might win the weak. This is what he was talking about before with people who eat food, right? I have become all things to all men, so that I may by all means save some. I do all things for the sake of the gospel, so that I may become a fellow partaker of it. Do you not know that those who run in a race all run? It's like, look, he's now using something in contemporary culture to explain something to them that they all understand. It's like, you've seen a race before, right? How many people are running? Is it just the guy who's going to win? No, all of them run, right? But only one receives the prize. So then run in such a way that you may win. Do everything in your ability to make yourself the best person for that job, for whatever it is. Yes, it could work for your actual job, but he's talking about for the sake of the gospel. He realized he could have made money on it. He could have done all of these other things. He could have asked for more from the people, but he didn't. He chose to live with just basically donations from what he had from his friends and from other churches to take care of his needs. That's all that it was. And why did he do that? So that no one could say, oh, yeah, he was doing that just because I was giving him money. No. He wanted to be certain that God was the one who got the glory, not him. Everyone who competes in the games exercises self-control in all things. Then they do it to receive a perishable wreath. But we an imperishable. Therefore, run in such a way as not without aim. Or rather, I run in such a way as not without aim. I box in such a way as not just beating the air, but I discipline my body to make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified. All right, let's go on to Ezekiel chapter 7. Moreover, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, And you, son of man, thus says the Lord God to the land of Israel, an end. The end is coming on the four corners of the land. You may be like, wait a minute, four corners, flat earth, north, south, east, west. Four corners of the earth. Now the end is upon you, and I will send my anger against you. I will judge you according to your ways and bring all your abominations upon you. For my eye will have no pity on you, nor will I spare you. But I will bring your ways upon you, and your abominations will be among you. Then you will know that I am the Lord. This is a recurring theme. He's doing all of these things to reveal to him who is God. Their idols that they worship, or the God of their fathers who gave them the land and took care of all of their needs. Thus says the Lord, a disaster, a unique disaster. Behold, it is coming. An end is coming. The end has come. It has awakened against you. Behold, it has come. Your doom has come upon you, O inhabitant of the land. The time has come. The day is near. Tumult rather than joyful shouting on the mountains. Now I will shortly pour out my wrath on you, and spend my anger against you, and judge you according to your ways, and bring on you all your abominations. My eye will show no pity, nor will I spare. I will repay you according to your ways, while your abominations are in your midst. Then you will know that I, the Lord, do the smiting. Behold the day, behold, it is coming. Your doom has gone forth. The rod has budded. Arrogance has bloomed. Now, this rod has budded thing, this is a callback to Aaron's staff. When all of the tribes had all of their people saying, who are Moses and Aaron? Why doesn't God speak through us too? And he also heard this from the other Levites, like, we're from the same family. Why can't we be the ones to preach for God? And so what happened was, God said, okay. And so they all lined up and they had their little incense things. And fire came out of the incense of all the other people and killed them. Then he said, all right, well, let's hold on. Let me help you a little bit here. Does this one actually have the reference? No. Okay. So he's like, okay, so every single tribe, everybody, hurry up, gather around, grab your leaders, right? And every one of you take a branch, right, a stick, and carve your name into it for the people, for your tribe. And then lay it here overnight and everybody leaves, right? Well, they came up the next day and they waited and everybody went in together. And all of them were just sticks, except for Aaron's. Aaron's rod had completely budded. It regrew from the fact it was an old dead stick. It regrew. Not only had it regrown, but it had blossoms that were ripe, and it had ripe almonds on it. The rod has budded. God has revealed himself. Your doom, your arrogance has budded in the same way that Aaron's rod budded. And it has borne for you doom from the arrogance that you have. Violence has grown into a rod of wickedness. None of them shall remain, none of their people, none of their wealth, nor anything eminent among them. The time has come, the day has arrived. Let not the buyer rejoice, nor the seller mourn, for wrath is against all their multitude. Indeed, the seller will not regain what he has sold as long as they both live. For the vision regarding all their multitude will not be averted, nor will any of them maintain his life by his iniquity. They have blown the trumpet and made everything ready, but no one is going to the battle. For my wrath is against all their multitude. The sword is outside, and the plague is inside, and the famine are inside. He who is in the field will die by the sword. Famine and the plague or pestilence will consume those in the city. Remember that threefold destruction that Jeremiah talked about? Even when their survivors escape, they will be on the mountains like doves of the valleys, all of them mourning, each over his own iniquity. All hands will hang limp, and all knees will become like water. They will gird themselves with sackcloth, and shuddering will overwhelm them. And shame will be on all faces, and baldness on their foreheads, on all their foreheads. They will fling their silver into their streets, and their gold will become an abhorrent thing. Their silver and their gold will not be able to deliver them in the day of the wrath of the Lord God. They cannot satisfy their appetite, nor can they fill their stomachs, for their iniquity has become an occasion of stumbling. They transformed the beauty of his ornaments into pride. And they made the images of their abominations and their detestable things with it. Therefore, I will make it an abhorrent thing to them. I will give it into the hands of the foreigners as plunder, and to the wicked of the earth as spoil, and they will profane it. I will also turn my face from them, and they will profane my secret place. Then robbers will enter and profane it. These robbers will enter into the Holy of Holies. Make the chain, for the land is full of bloody crimes, and the city is full of violence. Therefore, I will bring the worst of the nations, and they will possess their houses. I will also make the pride of the strong ones cease, and their holy places will be profaned. When anguish comes, they will seek peace, but there will be none. There we go. Pulling up the rest of the notes here for you. There we go. Disaster will come upon disaster, and rumor will be added to rumor. Then they will seek a vision from a prophet. But the law will be lost from the priest, and counsel from the elders. The king will mourn, and the prince will be clothed with horror, and the hands of the people of the land will tremble. According to their conduct I will deal with them, and by their judgments I will judge them, and they will know that I am the Lord. Remember how I said that recurring theme? Let's move on to Psalm 45. My heart overflows with a good theme. I address my verses to the king. My tongue is the pen of a ready writer. You are fairer than sons of men, than these sons of men. Grace is poured upon your lips. Therefore God has blessed you forever. Gird your sword on your thigh, O mighty one. In your splendor and your majesty, and in your majesty ride on victoriously, for the cause of truth and meekness and righteousness. Let your right hand teach you awesome things. Your arrows are sharp. The peoples fall under you. Your arrows are in the heart of the king's enemies. Your throne, O God, is forever and ever. A scepter of uprightness is the scepter of your kingdom. You have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of joy above your fellows. All your garments are fragrant with myrrh and aloes and cassia. Out of ivory palaces, stringed instruments have made you glad. King's daughters are among your noble ladies. At your right hand stands the queen in gold from Ophir. Listen, O daughter. Give attention and incline your ear. Forget your people and your father's house. Then the king will desire your beauty. Because he is your Lord, bow down to him. The daughter of Tyre will come with a gift. The rich among the people will seek your favor. Now, I've heard people see and read this line about how, listen, O daughter, forget your people and your father's house. People are like, oh, she must be a slave. Forget your people. Just as the bride is exhorted to leave her former family, so the Christian forsakes all to be joined to Christ. Now you might be saying, this wasn't written to Christians. That's true. But the point that it's making is that our relationship with God, even for Jews, should be more intense. Our love for God, our trust in God, our faith in God should be more intense than our love, trust, or faith even in our family members. The king's daughter is all glorious within. Her clothing is interwoven with gold. She will be led to the king in embroidered work. The virgins, her companions who follow her, will be brought to you. They will be led forth with gladness and rejoicing. They will enter into the king's palace. In place of your fathers will be your sons. You shall make them princes in all the earth. I will cause your name to be remembered in all generations. Therefore the peoples will give you thanks forever and ever. Behold, the word of the Lord.